first got to see this beautiful dress from the 1890s made by my great-great-grandmother Alice. And the moment that I saw it, I knew that I wanted to recreate it. I had to take a few months off for a client project and health reasons, but as of last month, I am ready to get started on this project again. I'm so excited. So there are 4 main things that I worked on this month, and I wanted to basically just catch you up to where I'm at in preparation for getting the bodice done. And those 4 things are fabric, lace, the skirt, and the bodice mockup, as well as a couple of other little things in there too. Right after I finished the corset last month, I pretty much immediately got started on the bodice mockup, which is basically where I had been previously. So I wanted to pick it up back where I was to review how close I was to actually being ready to make this. And I realized that there were a few problems with my pattern. When I had gone through and digitized all the patterns for the Alice dress, I had used the Keystone Jacket and Dress Cutter basic waist pattern because it had the right number of panels, it had darts and seam lines all in the right place. The only problem was that when I input the measurements from the dress into the Keystone guide, the patterns didn't quite match. It's entirely possible that Alice changed the pattern a little bit to fit her. She had a very tiny frame, and there was probably some modifications that she needed in order to make it work. Or it could have just been someone else's pattern entirely. But I thought that if I moved the seam lines carefully and changed the steps slightly so that Alice's measurements matched the pattern's measurements, then I'd be able to put in my measurements and it would be accurate. However, there was just something fundamentally wrong with the pattern, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. Since the grain of the fabric was at more right angles at the bottom than I was expecting for the Keystone guide, I had made the entire bottom of the pattern flat, and I'm not sure that's the right thing to do in this particular case. So what I'm going to do is use the Keystone bodice and then use the other pieces that I made from the Alice dress on top of that. And thankfully, pretty much all of the other pieces are gathered on top, so there will be a bit of finagling and trying to make it work right, but in general, the basic measurements of the bodice are right. It's just the fit is a little bit funky. So I think all of the outside pieces should work just fine, and the inside Keystone guide bodice just worked easier. And that's kind of where I left it, at this maybe it'll work stage, but I'm not entirely sure yet. So that is the first thing that I'm going to be tackling in June. The next thing that I really wanted to tackle was the fabric, because when I initially got started on this project, I looked around everywhere that was available for a good cotton fabric that was lightweight and had the stripes and everything, and I couldn't find much of anything. So I chose this particular cotton because it had the stripes at the very least. It was 100% cotton, and it was semi-lightweight. It was about as good as I could get. It didn't have any flowers, which made me kind of sad, but it was a really nice high-quality cotton. So when I made the skirt last year, it worked out decently well. I think that this is a fairly good skirt. I was able to get all of the tiny gathers and everything, but it was pretty heavy in the end, which didn't really feel right. The gathers on the bodice are going to make more of a difference than the gathers on the skirt will. So I ended up looking online. Now last year I had looked online a bit, but most of the things that I had found at that time were either actual vintage fabrics, so they only had a limited amount, usually like a yard, maybe 2 yards, whereas I would need at the very least 5, preferably 7. So this year, it was like a shot in the dark to see if I might be able to find something, and I did find a store that had a lot of good options. Their name is Spin for Fun by Shay on Etsy. I'll make sure that I link them down below. So I ordered 4 samples and they arrived, and they were all very good options. Like, there was not any of them that definitely wouldn't work. They were all going to work. So I chose my personal favorite, which was this one of the blue flowers. The purple was nice, but it felt a little bit faded in comparison. So I was very happy with my fabric choice. The only problem was this fabric has kind of a soft butter yellow background instead of an actual white background. It's very light, so on screen it might be a little bit hard to tell the difference. But this meant that I couldn't use any of the white lace that I had for the sleeves and the collar. Now, as you can see in the original photo, this lace looks to be more than 2 inches, like maybe 3, maybe even 4. And it is extremely hard to find lace that looks like this, that also feels antique and is also not scratchy. I had several laces available in my stash that I originally thought of, but all of the ones that were close to the right color were very scratchy or cheap feeling or modern looking. And I looked online again. It makes me nervous to buy things online just because it's extremely hard to color match online. So I ended up going on Reddit and asking people in my area if they knew of a good store. And one commenter had a really great suggestion. So I was very excited to be able to finally find a lace. This was the one lace that I found in the store that was even close to long enough. This one is actually quite a bit wider than it needs to be, and it's got like these V's of lace, but it also has like the eyelash like fringe on the end, which I think is going to be adorable, and it's the perfect color. They also had the perfect butter yellow plain cotton that I could use for the lining, which is awesome. I really like how it looks over the butter yellow instead of on top of white. There's something different there that I really appreciate. It just goes with the fabric a lot more. So being able to have that for the lining is awesome. Once I had the fabric and the lace, it was just a matter of making another skirt. I decided that I was going to start with the skirt because it has the most large pieces, obviously. So it needed to have large portions of fabric available, so you kind of want to get that out of the way first. And again, I ordered 7 yards of fabric, even though I technically probably only need 6, and I could probably work with 5, but I wanted to give myself plenty of extra just in case, because I am clumsy. The skirt would be a really good place to start because it's relatively simple. It only took me about 2 days to make, honestly. If you are interested in making this skirt, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here because I have an entire tutorial on it that you can find in the Alice Dress playlist. I will also link it below. And the second time around with the skirt was actually really easy. I managed to get it done in about 2 days. It's got a lot of really long seams, but it's relatively simple to put together, so it was very confidence boosting to be able to throw the skirt together in a relatively short amount of time. There were a couple of things I changed. I think the main one is that on the back, I didn't leave the placket loose. I went ahead and attached the waistband all the way over because already on my white skirt, the placket got pre-folded and it's a lot harder to get it where I want it to stay. So I just increased the length of the waistband a little bit. So it doesn't perfectly match the original anymore, but I think that that was fine option. I don't think there's really a problem with doing that. I really love how this skirt turned out. It ended up so pretty. I'm so happy with the little flowers and everything. It looks really, really cute. And I am very excited to see how it looks all put together. This month, I also did a couple of tiny things. I changed the hip pad a little bit because it was pretty annoying to have to lace it up every time I wanted to use it. I just got rid of this section with the grommet, added a nice curve, so I cut off the bottom of 2 of the bones and changed it to just a wraparound. Before I started editing, I wanted to get a bit of a reveal with all of the layers that I have so far, as well as the brand new skirt. I love it so much. It is so very pretty. The delicate little flowers are adorable, and the cream color actually works, even though I was a little bit worried about wearing yellow. I am so happy with how swirly it is. I think that the changes that I made to the underpinnings, like the new corset and the slightly modified hip pad, both help the silhouette a lot. It's kind of a subtle effect, but I feel like everything's a lot smoother and more elegant, so I'm very excited to move forward. So that's what I've been up to this month. If you would like to catch up on all of the Alice dress videos, I will have the playlist as the first thing linked below in case you're curious. And I will see you next month with, hopefully, a bodice.